Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Stumble98, and welcome to my submission for Sonic Project 06, the Shadow any percent. So Shadow's run in this game is super fun. Basically what we do is we go through all 9 of Shadow's stages. He has one less stage than Sonic, and basically we're just gonna try, to go as fast as possible. We're gonna be doing some wall clipping. We're gonna be riding on some invisible collision with the hover car and all that stuff. This run is a little bit more buggy considering the fact that Chaos hasn't worked on it as long as he's worked on Sonic's campaign. So without further ado, let's get started here in 3, 2, 1, let's roll. As we'll see, Shadow is inherently a lot slower than Sonic, and especially because he doesn't have access to the gems, we are going to have to kind of maneuver through the stages in a bit of a different way. However, that doesn't mean it's any less cool, because Chaos did give Shadow his ability of the spin dash back. I guess in Retail 06, he had a bit of a, I guess from that amnesia, he didn't realize that he was able to do the spin dash back in the day, so thankfully he gave it back to him. But Shadow's run is inherently a lot more combat focused than Sonic's run is, so we are going to be seeing a lot more enemy fights and that kind of stuff and using Shadow's combat prowess. Now, our first clip of the run here, basically what we're doing is, with Rouge here, there is a little bit of out-of-bounds collision she can attach to on the wall. So if you hit the wall at the right angle, you can actually clip through the invisible barrier and just go straight through the wall and kind of hug the other side. So basically what we do there is we go out of bounds and we hold onto the switch and go all the way through in order to go straight into Shadow's section. This is the one stage in the entirety of Project 06 so far where it's actually not to get the goal ring, the goal of the stage. It's to destroy these 5 searchlights, and this is actually like the one of my 2 contributions to Project 06 speedrunning, other than getting great times, is this searchlight route. So we use some of Shadow's Chaos Spear. If you charge up the Chaos Spear, it launches 5 damaging projectiles, which I believe is something in the original game, but I haven't played the original game in a while. But yeah, we do that, and we just use some jump dashes in order to kind of go through Shadows as fast as possible. So that was really nice. Moving on to the next stage of Kingdom Valley. This is definitely one of Shadow's hardest stages, and it's quite punishing if you mess up. But thankfully there are checkpoints, and when I say punishing, it's really a 5 to 10 second time loss. In a 22-23 minute run, that is quite a large time loss, but it's not the worst thing in the world. We're seeing a bit of Shadow's hang glider here. Each of Shadow's vehicles have a boost feature if you double tap A every 3 seconds. If you're on the motorcycle, which unfortunately we won't be seeing this run, it's every 1 second, but alrighty, so now we're in Rouge's section of Kingdom Valley, and just like the Retail game, we have to find 3 keys, but not only did Chaos give us a radar to help finding the keys be much easier, he also randomized a lot of the locations of the keys themselves. Each of these keys can be in 3 different locations, all of them mutually exclusive from each other. So, obviously 2 keys aren't in the exact same spots. Thankfully, this section is rather small, so, there's not really like a crazy, like, oh my goodness, like, this is all the way over here. However, this is a pretty terrible key set in terms of, other stuff we could get. We try to shoot for switching back to Shadow at the 1 minute mark, and this is at the 105 minute mark. But coming up is another really cool skip with the hover car. This is actually a consequence of how it's programmed, because the hover car, even though it doesn't technically have wheels on the model, it does have invisible wheels which allow it to kind of hover above the ground, and we get to get insane height off of that cliff and literally fly straight into the load trigger of the hover car's hover ability and go straight into section 3. This is actually a super good run of Kingdom Valley right now. Super happy that it did well. Now, basically we're just going to be doing a bunch of movement with Shadow in order to get through the rest of Kingdom Valley here. And this gives me time to talk about the Legacy Jump Dash. So in Project 06, there's 3 different types of jump dashes. There's the straight jump dash, which looks a lot like how it does in the Retail game. There's the curved jump dash, which is a lot more like Adventure 1 and Adventure 2, where you go in a curved arc at ascent speed. And then there's this one, which is the Legacy Jump Dash, which inherits the momentum of whichever way you're going. So if you're moving up, it's going to move up. If you're moving down, it's going to move down. And it's basically what makes Shadow's run fun. If I really have to have to say so. We're gonna do some spin kicks as Shadow here to preserve our momentum from the dash panel, because some dash panels in Shadow's story really just give an insane amount of speed, including that one. And especially since we're moving uphill, the fact that we're doing those spin kicks to preserve that momentum is really, really, really nice. Moving on to this final rail section here, you are supposed to fight some enemies in order to open this final door, but nuts to that, because we like going fast, so we're just going to go straight through, light dash on this, get this styrofoam rock out of our way, do a bit of a high jump there, and break the stained glass and go straight into the goal ring. The high jump is a consequence of a glitch called the double input glitch. Basically, we press A and X at the exact same time, and the game thinks that we're jumping twice, which gives us extra height. Which allows us to do some of the skips like that. It's definitely more important in Shadow's run than it is in Sonic's run. Moving on to Crisis City here, we get to actually do Sonic's board section with Shadow, and because Shadow has the spin dash, we definitely don't need the buggy. Chaos actually removed his buggy from this section. That's another vehicle we won't be seeing, which is actually kind of funny because Shadow just moves way too quickly with the spin dash here, but that's all good, at least for me, because I actually think this is one of my favorite sections of the game, going down here with Shadow's spin dash. But regardless, we're just kind of flying through this section, you know, using some of the slopes and the curves to keep our speed. Generally, you want to spin dash 3 times if you're on flat ground in order to get up to full speed. But also, if you're on flat ground, you'll just be spamming the spin dash, as it does kind of have that Adventure 1 property of pretty much having no delay. There is a slight delay, but it's not too crazy. So Crisis City, because, you know, story reasons for Sonic and for Shadow, they're pretty similar in like level design and stuff. So a lot of stuff I said during Sonic's run, you know, maybe if you came straight to Shadow's run, or you didn't get the chance to watch Sonic's run, I highly recommend it because it's super cool. But yeah, so basically, you know, we're just going to be going through Crisis City pretty much the exact same way as we did with Sonic. Again, Shadow is a little bit slower, of course, we don't have access to the gems. That is a showcase of the legacy jump dash in action right there, getting us a little bit more momentum heading upwards to basically land straight on that rail, which is super cool here. If you're familiar with Sonic's Crisis City, this part right here is going to look a little bit familiar, where we're going to go ahead and try to get ourselves a spin dash. You have 1 frame to get that spin dash right before hitting those dash panels, and unfortunately we weren't able to do it. But we can just kind of head up here, do some gravity-defying homing attack shenanigans on that grind rail, hit the spring right there for the high jump, and head straight on into Section 3. Section 3 of Shadow's Crisis City is definitely one of the hardest sections of the run, absolutely, because, you know, it's very difficult. All we do is we use the hang glider, go above all the debris. There actually is a kill plane, like, pretty much right above us, so it is a fairly specific spot we have to be, but we basically just fly over all the debris and none of it touches us, and we're pretty much good to go for this section. So all we do is fly in a straight line and boost, and thankfully, because this is a mechanical hang glider, we don't have to worry about drag and air drag and in a tornado and all that stuff. All right, moving on to the Section 4, which is different from Sonic's section, is yeah, so we're going to be doing a lot of badnik bounces, a lot of homing attacks, a lot of spin dashing. This is a really fun section. If you couldn't tell already, this is actually my favorite run in the game. I really enjoy kind of working around Shadow's, albeit a bit more diet moveset than Sonic has, because it doesn't have nearly as many options as Sonic does with those gems. Woo, man, almost missed that grind rail there. Thankfully, we were still able to hit it just fine. But we get this really cool section here where we're going up this rotating grind rail with the tornado in the background, which is absolutely awesome. Going a little bit of automation here with the springs. Unfortunately, unlike Sonic with Shadow, we do have to, you know, kind of sit through all the automation, which kind of stinks. But we'll do one more spin dash into some legacy homing attacks. And what we do is we just do a homing attack on those 2 enemies and take the spring all the way into the goal ring. Yes. Beautiful stuff. You can kind of see the Iblis lizards in the back there looking around, not quite sure what to do. Couldn't fathom Shadow's super quick speed.
Guess that was all right.
Amazing. All right, next stage, Flame Core. Again, very similar to Sonic's Flame Core, and in fact, probably his most similar stage, because Crisis City had a different section, but Flame Core is basically the same. We're just going to have more enemies, but we're actually going to see a showcase of some of Shadow's unique abilities that being his chaos boost and his uninhibited mode, or as I like to call it, his overclocked mode. So with the bar in the bottom right, basically that is going to fill up because Shadow's the only character where it doesn't automatically fill up. And we're going to activate Chaos Boost. This gives us a slew of abilities, the most important one being Chaos Snap, where in layman's terms is basically just teleporting to enemies and gives us a longer range on our homing attack. But if we press up on the D-pad, when we have all three of those hash marks ticked off, we get Shadow's uninhibited mode, which is a super cool ability. You get it for getting all of Shadow's S ranks in his stages, and basically what this does is allows us to destroy enemies in one hit. Shadow is completely invincible, but the hard thing is that unlike a super form where rings are pretty much everywhere, we can kind of just collect stuff all willy-nilly, we do have to be careful of our action gauge down there, because if we run out, we actually have a 5-second penalty for kind of abusing the power too much, I guess you could say. Because, you know, Shadow's releasing all of his power in uninhibited mode here, so he has to keep destroying enemies, getting light cores and chaos drives in order to maintain the super form, kind of like how Sonic needs to collect rings in order to keep his super form, and I guess Shadow, but Shadow doesn't have a super form in Project 06, so this is basically the best we can do. Gonna do a quick reset here because that resets Shadow to his normal state, because you do carry your uninhibited mode over into the next section, but we obviously don't want to have that because we don't want the penalty, and this next section here doesn't have enough enemies in the route in order to maintain that uninhibited speed. But thankfully we're basically uninhibited Shadow again, because you know, we have this invincibility right here, so thankfully we can just grab that and head right on through. You know, if I don't accidentally Chaos Spear here and kill all my momentum, we can continue on. Break out of that automation there by pressing X instead of A. Shadow just kind of falls, which is kind of interesting. And we're now on to Rouge's section. If you saw Sonic's run, this is literally just what we're doing is Knuckles. The orbs are just in a different spot, so we just kind of got to go through here. Thankfully, there's no radar, no keys to find, and thankfully in the last stage, Tropical Jungle, we won't really be collecting keys either. But yeah, we're just going to kind of collect those 5 orbs, do that, and basically kind of take the same route as Sonic did here through this section in order to just get through as quickly as possible. We do have to do something a little bit different here. We're going to do a Badnik bounce, and then we're just going to do a high jump off of there in order to skip that section. Whereas with Sonic, we could just use the purple gem. As you can see, there are a lot of like interesting little differences between Sonic and Shadow's run, all of which are really, really cool, I think. Shadow's my favorite run in the game. He's not my favorite Sonic character. That honor goes to Tails, but his stages, I don't know, they just feel a lot more exciting. I don't know. It's weird to describe why I like it so much. All right, Shadow's Radical Train. This is definitely the scariest stage in the run, because if we mess up our tricks, we have to go start the stage completely over. Thankfully, it's a very short stage, but we're gonna do our first skip here, where we do a high jump and basically avoid that entire enemy section and go all the way around. We basically just kind of use a high jump to jump around the terrain and the platforming there, and just kind of, you know, go all the way through. But a second, more scary one, so we skip that, is we do a spin dash really quickly into a jump. We almost failed that there, so I kind of want to reset myself. There we go, and we're already in section 2, 40 seconds into Shadow's Radical Train. That went way better than I was expecting, thankfully. But like I said, because you can tell, obviously the Radical Train's a super short stage, it's not too much to worry about. Moving down on here, there's a little oversight Chaos had, where this is the train you actually chase as Shadow, but you can actually stand on the bit of the tracks there where the invisible wall is and blast it with Chaos Spears, because Chaos Spears go through invisible walls, and if you charge it, does damage, and basically makes Shadow's Radical Train as short as Sonic's Dusty Desert, which is kind of crazy. So unfortunately, we don't get to see the motorcycle, because the motorcycle is also omitted from Aquatic Base. But Aquatic Base is going to be our second and final chance to see Shadow's uninhibited mode. We're going to be using it throughout the whole stage, which is really, really neat. So let's go ahead and destroy some enemies here. This is definitely one of the most fun stages. I actually, well, for a little bit had the world record, and then a new clip was found, which I wouldn't really deem as marathon safe in order to do. So I'm going ahead and going to do this the old way, as when I had the world record for this. And the new skip really doesn't save too much time, so use uninhibited mode to destroy those Iblis and Mephiles worms really quickly, and then we switch over to Silver. One little part of Silver here, what we're gonna do is get really close to these spike balls, because the closer you are to an object, when you're picking up multiple objects, the further they spread out, and kind of just like go left and right, kind of like if you've seen people use Magnesis in Breath of the Wild to destroy all those enemies. Finish up Silver section, switch back to Shadow, and based on a little, I don't know if you call it a bug or a little quirk, we actually start back with Shadow with level 2 Chaos Boost, which is really nice because we actually get to see the one and only showcasing of Chaos Blast right here. Returning from Shadow the Hedgehog. It was in 06, the original game, but it definitely is not nearly as useful as it was right there. So, Chaos X definitely making it more useful, but of course it stops Shadow in place for like 5 seconds, so it has very limited usage throughout most of the run. But regardless, we're just going ahead and go through section 2 of Aquatic Base here. Unfortunately, I missed the automation skip, so as a bit of a punishment, we have to take the slow loop here. Thankfully, we get snapped back on track, so there's not much to worry about. We're going to basically be using mostly Chaos Snap here, going through this section. We're basically just trying to build up our meter, because we can't go through this section without destroying enemies. But as we get to this last section here, we're going to bop these 2 magnetic poles. And then once we finish that, we're going to go into uninhibited mode one more time and basically just obliterate all the enemies in this final section of Aquatic Base. You know, as story-wise, Shadow is chasing Mephiles, so it makes sense that there's a whole ton of enemies right at the end of the stage. But thankfully, regardless of health, we destroy everything in one hit. And we get this really cool results screen where we see Shadow in his uninhibited stage, kind of, you know, looking pretty sweet here in the results screen. At least I think. Moving on from there, we don't have a whole lot of Shadow gameplay left. Only 3 more stages. His longest stages, Wave Ocean being the first one here. We got our final hang glider section coming up. Basically, we're just going to be boosting through this, so this is a wonderful time for donations, if we are going to be doing that. But if not, you know, let's go ahead and kind of go right through it. We do have to be a little bit careful here because the timing on these gates can be a little bit scary, but thankfully we avoided those just fine. It is a bit of a time killer if we don't avoid those gates properly, but thankfully here we can see Chaos added a little a wall there, kind of invisible like digital wall, to show us, you know, kind of where the kill plane is. So thankfully we can't go too far to the right and you know, bork ourselves with it. But we do have our first showcase in here of E123 Omega. E123 Omega unfortunately got the short stick in PO6. He is definitely the least fun character to play as, at least in my opinion. But his movement's still pretty cool. In Wave Ocean here, basically we're just going from beginning to end. We don't even have to destroy any enemies. But in Dusty Desert, we're going to be seeing him a whole hell of a lot more because it is basically, basically Dusty Desert is Omega's stage, and we're going to be seeing a lot more fighting and that kind of stuff. Hit a hidden spring there in the rock, and we're just going to go up here and meet Mephiles, as Mephiles was who Omega was tracking down. So do a little there, entering Gatling gun mode, which again is something that we will see in Dusty Desert more of because we actually have to defeat enemies here. We're just going to avoid all these enemies and destroy these 2 with Shadow right here. Do his little kicks and fun stuff. Get a little cutscene of the gate opening, I suppose. So go ahead and just run right through here. Do a little skip of the automation there, and this is one of the coolest sections of the run here. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna light dash, spin kick to preserve some of that light dash momentum, and we're going to do a high jump to avoid the invisible wall there. And we get to say hello to our friend Dave. This is what I named this Titan because we usually homing attack him if we don't do this section optimally, and he kind of saves us from a watery grave, I suppose. And we get our second to last hovercraft section. They really didn't know when they were designing Shadow stages in Retail 06 what to do with them at the end of a lot of these sections. So to get across the water here, we're just going to use the hover car and head straight to the goal ring. A fun little quirk in this release in particular is the hover car continues to be controlled even after you hit the goal ring. So sometimes if you hit it just right, we can see the hover car in the results screen. Maybe, hey, there it is. Moving on though, next up we have Shadow's Dusty Desert. So there's this big first section where we're supposed to go through a bunch of pillars and destroy a bunch of enemies, but thankfully Chaos, I don't know if this was an oversight or not, or if he's just being a really nice guy, but what we can do is we can actually do a little jump off the sand dunes there and hover, and the trigger for it is actually right here. So this door just opens right up, and 17 seconds in, we're already in the section 2 of Dusty Desert here. So Dusty Desert is a little scary, as evident right there. You know, have to die at least once in the submission run. Thankfully, you know, like I said, not a huge death, especially because there are checkpoints galore in this game, and shadow sections in particular, they aren't too crazy or too, you know, too bad when it comes to deaths like that and stuff. But you know, using the spin dash here, we're gonna go through stuff and we switch to Omega. And especially since we skipped that beginning section, this stage is mostly for a boy on 1, 2, 3 Omega. And while it's not as fun to play as in Sonic Heroes, this section is still pretty cool. As you saw back there, if we press Y, Chaos X added the sweet Gatling gun mode, in addition to his hover, his shotgun blast, and his kind of gamma blast, or Tails and Eggman blast from Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, where you can lock onto enemies and then fire at them. So what we're gonna do, we call this the fight room. This is some pretty cool movement here, where we fall down, shotgun blast those 4 enemies, and then we use the lock-on mechanic to hit these last 3 enemies, and then the door opens right up. Really, really quick stuff. Gonna do a high jump here because of course Omega can high jump. Like I said, pretty much all the characters can do a high jump except for Silver. But thankfully in Silver section we don't really have to worry about doing a high jump of any sort. We're gonna do a quick one right there, jump over the shoulder of that Mephiles worm, I suppose, and then we're just gonna do a little bit of hovering and avoiding of these guys right here. Because the purple enemies, the Iblis enemies, are kind of like the level 1 version of these guys, where the purple ones are a little bit stronger. So thank goodness for this Gatling gun mode, because especially in a room like this, if we had to use a homing attack or something like that to destroy all these enemies, man, it would take a while. But thankfully with Omega, we can kind of blitz through that, which is really, really nice. So we're just gonna go ahead and hit this switch right as Omega here, again because we used the Gatling gun to hit the switch earlier. In that section we didn't have to go to the right, we could just go straight to the left. And yeah, a little bit of a fumble right there, but we can go ahead and just land on this platform, or Shadow can do this little dance with the Mephiles Titan, I suppose. Grab a few rings just for safety, and then we're gonna go ahead and destroy these 3 enemies. To the right there is to Shadow's Memory Shard Light, which is what allows us to use the uninhibited mode. You only unlock that doorway if you get all the S ranks, but we're almost done with Shadow's Dusty Desert here. Of course, one more death just for good measure, because sometimes the collision on these, as you can kind of see from the camera stuttering a bit as we spin dash down these, the collision on these can be a tad bit weird, so sometimes Shadow kind of launches off, because in this game the spin is not retained when you launch off of a little slope, regardless of how big it is. So we're just gonna go ahead and go through this final section here, and in under 3 minutes we are going to complete Shadow's Dusty Desert. Our final stage here is Rouge's Tropical Jungle, where normally we have to collect 3 keys, but we can do another clip, kind of like what we did way back in White Acropolis, and just kind of finish the stage like that. So let's go ahead and finish that up. Tropical Jungle, we get this little dialogue box here telling us to collect 3 keys. We can do a little bit of a start over in order to skip it. And we're just going to do a couple high jumps to get our glide at a nice high height. And we're just gonna basically fly straight to the end of the stage. Now this clip can be a little bit unruly at times. As you can see here, I'm quickly letting go and repressing A. That actually resets Rouge's glide descent. So we can fly all the way over to this wall, and even though this wall doesn't have a texture, it does have collision, so we can grab it. And basically what we gotta do here is we just gotta kind of hopefully find the right angle here, and Rouge should clip all the way through this wall. We almost had it there. Come on, Rouge, work with me here. Of course, we get the clip super fast in White Acropolis, and then it takes a minute or 2 here. If it doesn't work, we can just collect the keys, and it's not too slow, but I would really like to show this off here. Come on. Normally you can complete this stage in like 30 seconds if you get a good clip, but it seems like the being a bit unruly here with Rouge wanting to get out of bounds. As you can see, obviously this isn't intended. There we go. So we clip through and we are finished. with Shadow's run as we go behind the laser gates, say hello to our friend Omega, and complete the stages Rouge. So normally, like I said, the clip doesn't take that long to do, but I like that that was in the submission run because that's kind of how long it can take. But you know, normally probably about a 23:30 is what, you know, this run would be. Regardless, that was Shadow's any percent in Sonic the Hedgehog Project 06. I hope you enjoyed this run, and I hope to see you at the event.